Hey there, back at you with some RTD news updates. And so today's articles come from basically a lot of things happening here locally here in the United States, and it has to do with the real state of our economy, which is some things that are not necessarily mainstream. So I got about 6 or so articles to share with you, and of course you can always find them down below. Hope you guys are enjoying these little updates. I find it fun as well as educational on my part to stay current with news and then also to be able to share it with others. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. So anyway, this article here is titled "The Boomerang Generation: Older Millennials Are Pushing Increase of Young Adults Living at Home." So this here is from the Dr. Housing Bubble. And so here are a couple of things I highlighted that was well worth mentioning. And it says, while prices are up, the home ownership rate is down. And significantly, the home ownership rate is now at least at levels last seen 50 years ago. And so right now there's a graph here which shows that the plunge in U.S. home ownership rates are down, at the same levels they were back in the 60s. And then the writer of this article here gives a couple of reasons as to why that is. And then he breaks it down to classes of people that are kind of impacted by this. And it says here, it seems like we will have three classes of people in this housing market. Rather, first, those that can buy and will buy. Second, those that can rent and will rent. And third, those that can't buy or rent and will live at home. And the third category is where the many millennials are falling. Take a look at these latest data here. And so the point in this situation here is because the housing market is down, predominant house purchasers would be in that mid 30, late 30 age range there. Out of college, well into their career, purchasing homes, and he's mentioning how the trend has changed drastically, and those that leave college with more debt than they are able to pay back, therefore can't find real jobs, therefore can't begin entering into the real world as far as purchasing homes. So here he has a graph from Zillow, which basically shows that kids from 18 to 34 living with their parents has increased, from 27% back in the 70s up until 2000 was like 13, 14 to 33 or so percent. So 33% of kids or young adults who more likely have a student loan or loans in general aren't out there looking for houses. So they're choosing to stay home with mommy and daddy and preferably save a couple of dollars, I imagine. So here's some more graphs here. And it said, as it turns out, the big push is coming from older millennials. This makes sense in the context that never in our history have we had so many people going to college as a percent of the population. College students, for the most part, are renters and living away from home. So just a great article, just to shows how the housing market is not that good as far as actual home ownership from the younger population, and some graphs here to kind of back that up a little bit. So next article, statistics of depression. And so this article here has to do with the personal savings rate here in the country, and this writer here basically gives a couple different statistical things that kind of show the trends, and ultimately it boils down to how the GDP was adjusted and all the other categories and statistics they use to kind of measure the state of the economy have all been adjusted continuously after every annual meeting or quarterly meeting and whatnot, to the point where you can't really tell or trust even the statistics from the government nowadays. So he talks about here the figures now suggest that personal savings were 6% of income in November 2015, not the 4.9%, which is what was mentioned initially. And so between going up and going down, you really can't tell what the real numbers are. And so he give a couple graphs here to show how much of a disparity it is between what's actual and what's not. And so more personal savings rate here, basically it's been adjusted so many times here. He gives different colors for the way it's been adjusted and recalculated and things like that. So basically just saying that the government's figures, you can't really count upon them. And it all leads into the fact that, the economy is not that good for the majority of people. And so a little bit more information here talks about the measure of total hours worked, how, less people are in the workforce. And so this factors into people's ability to save in their disposable income and things like that. So something worth checking out. It's a lot of statistics in here that'll be worth your while. But then the next article gets into more of the whole idea of people not working or wanting to work and things like that. So basically has a lot to do with employment and unemployment. So here's an article from Zero Hedge. It says 65 million Americans would like to work but can't risk losing their entitlements. And so Tyler Durden here basically just goes through how from the last DNC, from the DNC event the other day, how the young lady who got out there with a handicap basically was saying how, you know, she supports Hillary, and because Hillary cares for her, and they're going to make a way for her to be able to contribute and make a living and save money, things like that. And so it's a couple quotes here that has to do with the fact that, you know, somebody would like to be able to put money into a bank account, but they do put money into a bank account, they're afraid that they're going to have their benefits slashed, and primarily here lose their Social Security. And so it just talks about how dependent the public has become upon government for these entitlements, to the point where those that are able to work would rather, you know, stay at home and not work and continue to get their entitlements. But yet those who have handicaps, they are trying to figure out a way to basically allow those with handicaps to continue to keep their benefits, but yet be able to save money. And so they are creating, or have created, what looks like a loophole, as they say here, called ABLE, A-B-L-E. ABLE is a savings account created in Congress in 2014 that can be open by or for people with a disability. So basically here, just, you know, if you qualify, if you have a disability, a lifelong disability type of thing, you can save up to $100,000 of your own personal money and use it for what's called tax-free for disabled, for expenditures for healthcare, education, housing, basic needs. So basically you can have a, you know, a private lifestyle that's funded by yourself from your own efforts that you can save and not spend, while still be able to collect from the government. So just a little loophole that's being pushed, and I'm sure, you know, definitely it's a noteworthy cause to be able to help disabled people contribute to the economy. But yet if they're contributing, you know, in my opinion, they should be held accountable to the regular, you know, taxation and, you know, theft that the regular people who work and, you know, get their life savings inflated away as well. So anyways, our article for you to check out, find out more below. Here's one from Charles Smith, who was a past guest on RTD interviews. And so here he talks about revealing the real rate of inflation will crash the system. So he basically references a couple articles he's written before, which you can click on and read, but basically saying that, you know, a lot of people say that, you know, it's nowhere near the, you know, 1% or 2%, whatever the government says inflation rate is. And some private and institutions have come up with saying that it's closer to 7 to 13%. And then also from a prior guest, Ed Butowski, who does inflation calculations, had it about 9 or 10 or so on average. So, you know, basically, you know, if the real numbers were used for measurements when it comes to our markets and things like that, he basically lists 4 ways that it would basically cause a crash instantly if people actually lived up to the real rate of inflation. So the first one was Social Security beneficiaries would demand an annual increase of 7+% instead of a 0 or near 0 annual increase. So basically, add 7% automatically to Social Security. That'll just, you know, that'll automatically take things down, you know, in a hurry. And then the next one will be global investors might start demanding yields on treasury bonds that are well above the rate of inflation. So, you know, become a lot more riskier for governments to borrow if they got to pay, you know, above the level of inflation that central banks are creating. And then the next one, private sector interest rates would rise also, crushing private borrowing. So if it costs, you know, 8%, you know, for a loan, 8% for a car, wouldn't be too many people out there trying to, you know, finance their lifestyles, you know, because credit wouldn't be available as easily. And then here's a couple graphs here just to show how astronomical it is. It says this tiny line decline almost collapsed the entire economy, talking about just the credit that's been extended since what we got right here, since 2008, 2009, had a little dip, but then it took off to where we're at now. And then here, just another graph here just to show how the credit has gone astronomical. It's gone vertical from the mid 90s all the way up here to the top. So, you know, how does it end? I'm not sure, but it says here, the grim reality is that real inflation is 7% per year, and this reality must be hidden behind bogus official calculations of inflation, as this reality would collapse the entire status quo. So, article from Charles Smith. He does some great work over there of twominds.com. And then here's something from Bill Bonner, quite a long one, but yet entertaining as well as fun. He does a good job of, making it real lifelike. But he talks about a situation where his family came over to visit him in France, and he ended up telling his grandson a bedtime story. And so he basically just broke down the economy, economics 101, and how central banking has, pretty much made everyone, as it says here, poor, while Americans get poorer. So he goes through a long list of just explaining how central bankers have it all wrong and how they are the reason why, that there's such income inequality and why people become even more poor, if I can say that correctly, than what they are now just because of policy from central banks. So a lot of stuff in here. I highlight a few things, but I'll let you read it. But it just talks about how, I think one thing I found was funny was about what money is. He said money is not the same as wealth any more than a claim ticket for an automobile left in a parking garage is the same as a car. What else right here? It's about money just being an idea. You can't, create money in that sense. For it, in order for it to create wealth, you have to have productivity and things like that. And so he said, if as long as they continue to print money, you can guarantee people are going to become, make people poorer. So, interesting article. Last one from Mr. James Rickards over at Daily Reckoning. He says how governments can kill cash. And so, as you know, I have a shirt called the Cashless Society shirt. And so it kind of plays into that at the fact that, the ultimate goal is to go cashless, because cash, is control that people have directly in their hands, and that's not a part of the system. So, James goes through a nice little historical piece here, giving, one thing that I wasn't aware of is that the U.S. got rid of its $500 note in 1969. So that's, I'm assuming, when it went out of circulation and haven't been back since. Then he mentions here that a $100 note has lost 85% of its purchasing power since that time there, 1969. So goes on to list, how the euro, 500 euro, went out of production just recently, and how, because people are going to want more ways to store higher, how to put it, higher denominations or higher amounts of cash in notes, they'll be willing to pay a little bit of a premium on a 500 euro note eventually. So holding on to a 500 euro note, can actually, make you some money down the line as they become scarce. So he goes through a good couple ways at how the whole inflation basically steals from the people, and how, going to cash would be worth your while, but eventually they're going to take away the cash. So, good article here. Definitely does good work explaining his viewpoints there. And of course, he said one solution to negative interest rates, which, in Europe is current, and in the U.S., which, eventually may come, is to hold gold and hold things that have value. And so he talks about a global tax and a global movement that's underway, and he calls it BEPS or BEPS, bank erosion and profit shifting. Basically has to do with the global warming and different vehicles that are being put in place by the G20, the IMF, and the OECD, which has to do with finding ways to create a monetary system that's global so they can then begin taxing everybody. And so he says the global tax plan to pay for global climate change infrastructure with money, with world money, is the end game. And then he says that's the global elite plan: world money, world inflation, world taxation, with IMF as the central bank of the world and the G20 leaders as the board of directors. None of this is secret. It's all hiding in plain sight. The papers, the articles, links above give you a resource you need to learn more. So this James Rickards just basically just let you know how cashless societies are inevitable, and that it's in the best interest of the global elite to eliminate control by removing cash and forcing people to go digital. So all plays into their plan of just a one world government. So anyway, hope you enjoy this as well. Wanted to direct you to get some free educational information as well, and also the Cashless Society shirt if you guys are interested. Definitely trying to do more to make this monetary subject matter conversation worthy. So definitely having a shirt would help. And for those that have ordered, shirts are already out. So other than that, see you guys soon. Look forward to bringing you more news. Until we meet again. Peace.